I'm Nicole Rashat with the Investing News Network, and I'm here at day one of Minds and Money in New York. And joining me today is Andrew O'Donnell, Managing Director of Supercharged Stocks. How are you today?
Doing well. How are you? Wonderful day. Happy to be here in New York. It's exciting. It's my first time here, so I'm looking forward to the show.
Okay, great. So to jump right in, what is bringing you to this conference? Like, what are you trying to gain from attending Minds and Money in New York specifically?
Well, it's a couple different reasons. One, it's education on my own part because you're getting to meet with some brilliant minds here on the space specifically in the battery energies market. So I'm speaking on vanadium, which I'm a big fan of, and as well a little bit about graphite and lithium. But I love that green tech, clean tech angle that mining really is the foundation of. So I love being able to mix with people that are going to tell me what's happening right now, and some great smart minds that are here, listen to their opinions on things, and then help to reshape that and bring that out to the retail investor who isn't aware of what's going on really.
Okay, great. And speaking of the mining space, how does investor sentiment seem around the mining space right now?
It's tough. It really is tough. So I love it though because I find it fun and challenging. I live in Vancouver, so I love whenever I talk to people and I get that kind of squishy face whenever I say, "Oh, I work with mining companies," and they kind of groan. They can't even be polite. They're like, "Oh God," like, and I love that because I just say, "Well, you must hate green tech and clean tech and you must hate all of that. Then really the environment." Which then you get their attention right away. So there's just a big disconnect between what they think and what reality is. Is that if they want even a shot at solar being an option or wind being an option as everyone else, they have to look at clean energy, whether it's through vanadium redox batteries or if it's going to be with lithium or nickel based, whatever it is. These are all things that have to be pulled out of the earth. And I think the more attention we give it, the more funding we give it, the more precise we can be with regulations, which I think is good. It slows projects down, but at the same time, in the long-term scope, it's much better. But when you have enough funding and enough intelligent conversation, you'll realize we have to have this. I mean, you can't use your cell phone, you can't use a car, you can't use anything without any of this. The same can't be true in the oil and gas sector, whereas there will always be a need, but not nearly the amount that to the extent that mining. Mining is an absolute foundation for anything in the future, for anything technological.
Okay, great. So focusing a little bit on precious metals for a second. Of the precious metals, which do you think has the highest earning potential in 2019 and beyond?
I'm always going to say gold because it's my favorite. But that being said, a good friend of mine, John Newell from Fieldhouse Capital Management, just put out an article on Streetwise on platinum. So I haven't got a chance to read it. He sent it to me last night. So he's making the case for platinum. So I wish now I'd read that because that would seem really smart. But I think he's making the case for platinum for this year, which is definitely interesting. I'm looking forward to reading that. So I'm going to stick with my gold just because I want it to be so. But that's going to be interesting.
Interesting platinum, especially when palladium's been rallying a little bit lately.
Yeah,
So, okay, all right, that's good to know. So, do you have any advice for someone that is trying to jump into the precious metals sector in terms of investing?
Yes, just absorb as much information as you can. You're not going to get it on mainstream news, which is fine. But there's tons of trusted people in this sector with subscriber-based models, free models, whatnot. And once you ask around, if you go to, say, the Metals Writers Conference, if you go to some of these shows, Cambridge House, Minds and Money, then you're going to see that there's good quality people, and just start reading up a little bit because there's a lot of really undervalued companies. You can enter the space for pennies, literally, where and not only is the upside potential enormous, you can just start entering into positions, whereas it's not the same. You don't have to go buy Barrick or Newmont. You don't have to play that kind of deal. There are a ton of companies with huge upside potential for even a millennial to get involved in. And once again, having been a broker, I never tell anyone to just go all in on a story. You build into a story. And if a lot of these stocks are down 10 cents, 15 cents, 20 cents, I mean, that's incredible. You can start building positions over time for some of these companies and have an exceptional return. So there's a lot of open space with a lot of solid management in good regions with demand being enormous for a lot of these metals and elements that basic economics, supply demand. It's there, and who's going to come to the forefront? There's a lot. There's a lot of great companies out there. So, I have my favorites, but there are lots of ones that are going to do very well.
Sounds good. Um, since you mentioned,
Yes.
no, but before we get there, since you
Okay.
mentioned Barrick and Newmont, I have a little side question.
Okay.
What do you think about the M&A activity that's been happening in the gold space
Yeah. So
lately?
I've tweeted out a few things, kind of hinting at it that this is going to be a pretty huge year. Right at the beginning here, I said I have sneaking suspicions that this is going to be really big. I had heard some, you hear things all the time. I by no means do I think it's over. I think it's just beginning. I think there's going to be a lot of interesting things going on this summer. I think some bigger ones as well. I don't want to go out on a limb just yet, but I do have. I think I suspect a bigger one that will be this summer, and then there'll be lots of junior ones that are going to be doing lots of joint ventures and whatnot. I think there's going to be some big things coming out of the golden. I call it corridor, but that golden triangle kind of region. There's lots of incredible companies doing some great things. Uh, but that because of the Newmont Gold Corp Barrick thing, there's going to be a lot of projects now being opened, handed off, being sold, being shed that are incredible projects that juniors will be able to pick up, or wise money managers or for portfolio managers that go, listen, I can go start a fund, go raise myself X dollars, go buy all these properties. Be a pretty good strategy. There's lots of people sitting on the sidelines waiting to see what gets shed from that. What are they going to keep? What are they not going to keep? So it's going to be exciting on that front as well.
That's interesting. At PDAC, some people were they were like, I don't know if juniors are going to do it quite yet. So it's interesting that you say that because I think maybe the more that they've seen, that is.
It may not happen this summer, but I think there's going to be there's enough people and there's enough well-funded juniors too, oddly enough, and well-supported that they can. In the past, they would bleed out pretty fast, unfortunately, but some of these ones are now. It's not the same model as the 1990s.
Right.
A lot of these people come with solid backgrounds of raising money, lots of connections. They keep going. A lot of them are just consortiums of people that are behind the people. There's no end to money. So some of these aren't just like that model of a junior fly-by-night kind of company. It's not really the same anymore. It's really well-funded, really strong technical teams. Certainly not all, but there's quite a few with really solid management teams, geological technical teams up there, and they're well-funded and they have access to money. So, I think that there's going to be a lot of rumblings this summer. Hopefully, there'll be some great results as well at the end. But I think this should be a bit of a pinnacle point.
Okay, great. Switching gears from precious metals, vanadium.
Yes.
You are a fan of vanadium. Can you just give me a little bit of background on why vanadium is something that you stand behind?
The big thing is, you hear the same stories, whether it's the One Belt Road Initiative out of China, their massive, I call it empire building, call it what you will, across the globe. That's not going to end anytime soon. It can slow down, but still, even slowing down is a massive amount of copper absorption. 50% of copper goes to Asia. I think the number is 3.7 trillion a year is needed globally for infrastructure. That's a pretty big number. The infrastructure is mining, pretty much. So there is a lot of infrastructure. We know from the U.S. alone, infrastructure bill would be massive. So there's a demand for a lot of these materials. Vanadium is required to strengthen alloys, and 92% of all vanadium is sold for strengthening for steel industry, titanium, and whatnot. But the more, I call it the Star Trek kind of angle I like, or the futuristic one, is the redox battery. Where does it fit within the grid system? That growth can be huge. One of the angles I actually like is that the top 15 shipping container companies cause the same amount of pollution as all of the cars on the planet. So if you and it was actually, I think it was Dr. Richard Spencer from U308 said, if you threw a couple of vanadium battery tanks in the bottom of these, boom, you'd solve some problems pretty quick. So, whether or not that can be done, I think it's possible. I started looking at it a little bit. I'm going to talk about it a little bit today. Is a whole different story. But when you see people putting in, solving real world problems and having solutions, especially with something vanadium, which is clean energy, fully rechargeable, 20 years worth of storage, it's exciting. So to see if they can ramp it up into that massive scale as they are in China is pretty exciting. And once again, vanadium isn't something you're going to see in your phone, although they do have a vanadium battery car right now. So I'll be touching on that as well. So things are happening pretty fast, and that's you have to temper that with the fact that a lot of money has been put into lithium and lithium ion battery storage, where you know everyone has its day. So I look at the vanadium as being a growing story that you need to be a part of. And there's lots of entry points to a lot of good companies. It can be scary because the price fluctuation sometimes can be pretty dramatic. But I'm hoping is that we're going to see more of a settling in the $10 to $12 range, which then makes exploring vanadium batteries a lot more of an option as well. So I like it from the sense of there's just your bread and butter infrastructure story there. Great. Boring, but great. You need that. But there's this magical 8% of battery that is really exciting and is the future and can really change not only power grids that need upgrading, especially in North America, but just future growth throughout all of that One Belt, One Road initiative as well. So there's lots of companies, especially Australia, China, they're doing lots of exciting things, and a couple in Canada. It's a really an interesting story to once again get paired into. Just kind of get your feet wet and enter into some companies, build positions if they're meeting milestones, because there's lots of opportunity there.
Great. So if investors were to get into vanadium, do you have any advice for them?
Yeah, because they can't. I mean, it'd be great if you could actually just go buy vanadium.
Right. Yeah. We're like people interested in the vanadium space.
Yeah, and I'm sure. No, I'm sure there are people that actually do that, but the level of money you'd have to have would be pretty significant. But you can go for your pure plays. So you look at your Bushveld, your Evraz is the Russian one, Glencore, Largo, even pure play vanadium projects, or you can go for more of a junior ones. I'm a big fan of First Vanadium, which is in Nevada, as well as a Canadian company called Vanadium Corp, because they have it's a two-play type of thing. It's a mining company that has two properties in Quebec, as well as a licensing opportunity with their redox flow battery and technology, which they're ramping up for a commercial scale. And on their board is actually the person who invented the redox battery. So those are two just different stories where you can get involved at a good price for properties in North America as well to produce, because we don't produce in North America. So I think that supporting that is a good angle and good strategy as well. So there's a number of other good companies. Prophecy is a great good company as well. So there are ones you can get involved in and start just kind of testing the waters and seeing what's their game plan. Are they meeting it? Certainly First Vanadium is meeting their milestones and having great success enlarging their zones, improving up what they think is in the ground already, and they've been rewarded. So it's there's good space there to look around.
Great. And my final question for you. What are some of the stocks that you're most interested in the entire resource space?
Entire space.
Yeah, some of the top ones.
Okay.
I'm not going to pigeonhole you to precious metals or vanadium, but just whatever you're really interested in right now.
Okay. Well, I've always liked Great Bear, so I wrote them up. It was back in October. They've done well. I like Pure Gold as well. I love anything in that Golden Triangle area, so I do like Triumph. I like Lucky Strike. I like Juggernaut. I like Tudor Gold. I've met with Walter Storm and their team twice now. I think there's going to be some really great stuff. I did an article on them as well just a couple weeks back. So those are a couple ones in that space there that look really good. We have a couple. I'm doing. I'll call it a show with John Newell, who's a portfolio manager and fund manager in Vancouver, and we're doing a whole thing on that space, the Golden Corridor, where we talk about Seabridge, Pretium, you name it, and why you'd want to be interested in a Pretium rather than a Crystal Lake. And so we're going through a lot of the companies there saying who we like, who we don't. We don't always agree, but that's another kind of source you can take a quick peek at. We're going to be launching that pretty soon. It gives us some ideas. But we're both huge fans of that Northwest story, that there's just an untapped potential there that people either don't know or the people that do know.
Right.
That there's a lot going on there. So a lot of those companies I mentioned, that's where they are. They're, your Tudors, your Juggernauts, your whatnot. Those are all up there. I think you're going to see a lot coming from the drill programs this summer. Even a company like Tudor, they're going to go and probably drill all winter as well, which is they did that at Pretium. They went and drilled in the winter, which is insane, but makes for great stories. Yeah. I love it. You just imagine trying to drill in the winter, going across ice fields. I love it.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I hope the conference goes well for you. Once again, I'm Nicole Rashad with the Investing News Network, and joining me today is Andrew O'Donnell, Managing Director of Supercharged Stocks. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Nicole.
Have a great day.
Thanks.